Maybe you're someone that has always wanted to create your own pumpkin decorations, but you never really knew where to start. My name is Flori Fama. I'm an illustrator and surface pattern designer that also loves exploring all crafts imaginable. If you are into spooky, you will not want to miss the Halloween special I made for you. In this lesson, we'll be exploring how to make our pumpkin glow even brighter in the dark. First, let's go a bit over the use of transfer paper. To help visualizing the placement of your design, you can quickly estimate the template's position like so, visually. We'll start by cutting a piece of transfer paper that's roughly the same size as our word. A bit larger would be best. Just make sure the side of the transfer paper that will be against the pumpkin contains the transferring dust. We'll secure it to the pumpkin using painter's tape, placing it somewhere in the center. We'll tape our template on top of the transfer paper. Feel free to reposition it until you're satisfied with its placement. And next, we'll use a ballpoint pen to trace over each letter. We'll want a rounder tip to avoid accidentally piercing through the paper. Trace one letter at a time, making sure to cover the entire surface of each letter, especially the outlines. It's important to find the right balance between gentle and firm pressure during this process. If we're too gentle, it won't transfer. Before you begin, I recommend trying this out with a small random shape in a different area of the pumpkin, in order to gauge the pressure required for a successful transfer. Few things are more disappointing than discovering that many areas didn't transfer well once you remove the template. It's also not advisable to peek behind it while you work, as even the slightest shift can ruin your progress. Okay, now let's see how this turned out. It's looking pretty good. Don't be too concerned about the residue powder around the letters. This is perfectly normal. We can carefully wipe off around it as much as possible using a lint-free rag. After using tracing paper to transfer our template, we don't want our design to be easily wiped off. So our next step will be to actually paint these letters. We're gonna use a white acrylic paint marker this time to trace over Halloween. If you happen to stray off course, no worries. You can make corrections using a Q-tip, toothpick, or as I'm doing here, a mechanical pencil with the lead retracted. And now our central design is complete. Next, we're gonna freehand the spooky yet endearing pattern to embellish our artwork. As per my initial notes, I'm gonna go with a few basic shapes and place them in repetition strategically around my lettering. I'm starting with a ghost here, taking the opportunity to fill this gap between H and L, keeping negative space in check. Notice I'm leaving some breathing room between shapes though. Okay, let's give this neon orange a try now. Why not make a pumpkin for our next motif? This will nicely address the gap to the right of the letter L. I'll come back to give it a face once the paint fully dries. Up next, I'm adding a cloud shape above the pumpkin that will work as the background for a spooky expression later on. And I want to add a maple leaf right here. Okay, I think we can start repeating some shapes now. I'm gonna add another ghost. And when everything dries, I'll tackle the second layer for all the shapes that we have so far. I needed to make my pumpkin motif slightly larger to accommodate its smile properly. This is one of the reasons why it's so important to leave some room between shapes, not only for aesthetics, but also for these practical adjustments. For my initial attempt, I used a Sharpie, but it lacked the contrast that I was seeking. So I switched to a black acrylic marker. In case of any drips, you can also use a Q-tip to wipe off the excess. This black acrylic marker unfortunately dripped too much paint at once, so ultimately, I found that my hard tip brush pen was the right tool for the job. This inspired me to add a new motif, a bat. Frankly, I'm not loving the placement of my motif. So this is an excellent opportunity for me to show you how to remove permanent ink from your pumpkin. In the world of freestyling, it's perfectly normal to encounter moments of hesitation, requiring some flexibility in our creative process. It may be necessary to take a few steps back and make adjustments along the way. However, permanent ink isn't as forgiving as we'd like it to be. I attempted to erase it using rubbing alcohol, but on this particular surface it didn't work. The only thing that did the trick was nail polish remover. As you can see, there's no longer a trace of my bat. Now let's give it a second shot. Alright, this looks better. But I still believe it stands out too much in contrast with the rest of the shapes. So I'm gonna move on to something else. I'll create a leaf using a different color. I insist, when you get stuck with something, and it won't work right off the bat, if you will, it's best to jump ahead and revisit later. After doing that, I feel more comfortable adding a different version of my motif right over here. Next, I want to add a mushroom all the way over here. And then I'll continue to add shapes around my lettering to start balancing out negative space. Alright, lights off. It's time to reveal how it turned out. As you can see, I stuck with just a handful of motifs, occasionally varying their colors and giving different expressions to my jack-o'-lanterns and ghosts. Now we need to make our Halloween lettering the protagonist here. So I'll either retrace it with glow-in-the-dark acrylic paint or simply use one of my neon markers. Employing a limited color palette and a select set of motifs will make your design more cohesive and impactful. For my ghosts, I'm going to be opting for the paint. I like that it provides a slight texture, creating a more subdued yet interesting glow. You might notice some residual pigment in my close-up shots. The downside of UV light is that it will make every single particle stand out more. However, when you display your pumpkin at home, these details will be barely noticeable.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe to stay up to date on all of our latest videos.